Bottom here, this is just going to protect that glass. When you're storing it, this is going to be the optical glass and optical block, okay? With that being said, this is where the reflectance technology happens. Our strips are going to be placed on top of this glass, and it's going to actually read the color change. So with that being said, this glass should be clean at all times, okay? So if it has any smudges, scratches, that's going to need to be cleaned off, okay? Before testing anybody. Huh?
We cleaned it.
Alcohol and gauze. No need to get creative. We have alcohol and we have gauze, and that's going to be all you're going to want to put on there to clean. This little port right here, right next to that optical block, is going to be the electrochemical port. This is where your glucose strip goes. The lipid panel strip is going to be reflectance technology. The glucose is electrochemical technology. So that's measuring the current of the sample, okay? You're going to put the sample on. The glucose strip works like any other kind of point of care glucose strip. It does weigh automatically. The lipid panel portion takes 40 microliters. Okay? At the top of the analyzer, you see a little slot. This is going to be a memo chip port. So each lot of test strips, or each box of test strips, is going to have a memo chip inside. That's going to be lot specific. That is where the memo chip goes, and we'll get more into that as we go on. This is just tech terminology, okay? So you can turn on the analyzer by hitting either button. It should turn on. Good? Yeah, okay. You can turn it off. It'll time out after 3 minutes. So just be aware that if you are not waiting for a blood sample, it will time out after 3 minutes to save battery life. If you want to turn it off by yourself, or if you're in a menu option that you don't want to do, hold down both buttons for 3 seconds and it will power down. Sound good? Okay, so turn it back on. I'm going to go over the main menu options so you know where to find things if you're ever looking for it. First thing it's going to be is it's going to be in the run test mode when you turn it on. It's going to say install memo chip, or if you hit the next button, it says run test. So everyone hit the next button. See run test, that's where you're going to be running patient tests. 95% of your time, almost 100% of your time is going to be spent in that run test. Hit the next button again. You see the memory that does hold 50 patient samples or 10 quality control samples, okay? Hit the next button one more time. You see utility. This is where you're going to be, Sally and Angie are basically going to be taking care of the liquid quality control, so you don't have to worry about that, but this is where they would be running that. Hit the next button again. You see settings. This is where you can turn Wi-Fi on and off. This is where you can change date and time. This is where you can change units. The most important thing here, make sure your date and time are set correctly, because if they are not, let's say I have my analyzer set till May 31st, 2018. It reads off the memo chip when the expiration date on the test strips happens. So it's going to basically think it's 2018. It's going to say expired strips, and nothing's going to work out. And it's by your strips aren't expired. And it could also work the opposite way. If you have 2014, it could maybe allow you to run expired strips. So it's going to be one important thing, as well as it stores the patients in the memory based on date and time stamp. It's not going to have a Jane Smith or anything like that on the memory. Okay. When you go into the memory, the first person you see is going to be the most recent. So if I just stuck you, a Hunter, okay, you would be my first patient. If I hit the next one, it would be the second to last person, okay? And if you hit the next button one more time, you see an information or a question mark. This is if you need PTS, customer service numbers, or anything like that. So those are the 5 main menu options. What we're really going to hit hard today is probably good finger stick technique and really making sure that we can run all 3 tests off of one. So I'm going to tell you how we run it, and then I'm going to talk about all of them, and then I'm going to do a demo of all 3 next to it, and that's really where you're going to want to hit home as far as your technique and your steps that you're taking to make sure that you're okay. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the test strips then. You are only running lipid panel plus e-glue, correct? Tim?
I'm sorry?
You're only running lipid plus e-glue. You're never going to run something else, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So the test strips are going to look like this. This is called a smart bundle, and it has 15 tests in it. Okay? So when you open up the box, you are going to have 2 smaller boxes on the inside. One is lipid panel, and 1 is glucose. Especially because you haven't seen them. Here you go.
Thank you.
Emily, I will mention that there may be certain situations where if we're doing A1Cs as a part of the screen, we would just do the lipid panel and not do the glucose.
Okay, so I won't tell them how to cancel out that glucose, okay. Or would you just be ordering lipid panel strips?
We would just be ordering lipid
Okay.
panel strips,
Okay.
I think.
Perfect. Sounds good. If not, you'd have a whole bunch of glucose left over. So inside these smaller boxes, this is going to be what the lipid panel strips look like. It has a memo chip on the inside. This memo chip has a lot number on the back. It says Q602. My vial of strips is going to have the same lot number. You might have different lot numbers, so just so you know. I'll let everyone identify those. It's going to be really important that you check to make sure that all this matches before running patient tests for the day. Okay?
Oh, there's another one.
So everything should match, and then if you open up your glucose box, it should also say the same lot number. So, everyone's okay? Okay. You have 2 memo chips on the inside of each smart bundle. These are exactly the same, and they can be interchangeable. If you lose one, you can't use the other one. They just have to put 1 in each box, okay? As long as it has the correct lot number, you're gonna be okay. I'm gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about the strips. These are very sensitive to humidity, all of them. So with that being said, I'm not taking my strips out until I have a patient sitting with me. I'm not dumping them on the table and grabbing one and putting it in the analyzer. I have a patient sit down, I take out my strip, put it in my analyzer, and I try and use it within 5 minutes. Okay, I know there's some circumstances where that couldn't happen, but that's gonna be your goal. Okay? On the inside of the lipid panel vial, you have a desiccant cap and you have a desiccant pouch. It needs both of them in here to last until the expiration date. So it's going to be important that you don't take it out and throw it away, because if you don't use the whole vial of strips, they go back to, and then who knows when they're going to be used next. You want to make sure that we keep these as dry as possible so that they can last and that we can give accurate results to our patients, okay? It's going to be what we try and do the most. So you don't want to cap it halfway. You don't want to cap it even with a little gap. You want to make sure it's all the way closed. Glucose is a little different. The desiccant is around the inside of the vial. It does not have a desiccant cap or a desiccant pouch, but is around the vial. It's still going to be important that you shove it, even though you don't specifically see desiccant in there, okay? So for the lipid panel strip, you're going to see on here, and I'm going to, if you've seen it already, but the strip goes into the analyzer like this with the PTS logo going out. I'm going to go ahead and just bring this around so we don't waste so many. Once you put the blood sample on that white membrane, the first membrane's job is to spread out that sample. So don't take your sample and try and spread it out across the oval. Dose it right in the middle, let it do its own thing. It's going to spread out on its own. I don't want you accidentally puncturing that membrane. These are pretty delicate, so if you stick your capillary tube when you're dosing that sample into that well and puncture that membrane, if you think about it, that first layer's job is to spread it out. If you punctured it, it's like sticking your finger in the middle of a cake and trying to dump some kind of liquid on it. It's all going to want to go to that middle. Okay, so it's going to be important that we hover above the test strip and don't puncture that membrane at all. We also don't want to force that sample through the membrane, because if we're putting pressure on that blood to go through the membrane, it needs to stop at each layer. It's going through chemical reactions. So if you're forcing it through and pushing it through these membranes, it's also going to cause some bad effects, okay? On the back of the test strips, you see 3 circles. They are white right now. 3 white circles. Okay. When this reaction is finished and your results are up on the screen, when you pull it out, these are going to be blue. They're all going to be different shades of blue, but they are going to be a solid color blue. Every time you're done running a test, you should be checking the back of your test strip to make sure that all of these are evenly colored. So my bottom circle could be as dark as this glove. And my top circle could be, as light as the dental bib in front of you. But they're all going to be solid shades of blue in each circle. If they are not, that was when you would want to retest your patient. If you get any kind of half circle or half moon shape, that's going to be important. So it's just kind of your extra check. If you get an insufficient sample, it will more than likely give you a test error. But in that instance, if something happened or you force the blood through there and you see anything other than blue on the back, that is when you're going to want to retest. Okay, everyone okay with that? Okay. All right. So anytime you have strips in and you have a patient ready.
Let me see what you.
Okay. You are going to want to make sure that it is sitting in a place that is comfortable for the patient. Because once you pick this up, sometimes these can bump out of here, and we want to make sure this is pushed all the way in. If it sticks out like this, if you think about what the reflectance technology is doing, the LEDs are coming up and bouncing off the back of the test strip. If this has fallen out like just even quarter of an inch, it's reading the back of the black test strip and not the circles. Okay, so when the test strips are in, just make sure that it's sitting on a table ready to go. All right. And when I say room temperature on all this stuff, and this is going to pertain to A1C, cotinine, and the cardio check, just make sure that if you are transporting anyway, where I don't know if you specifically will, just make sure that it's not sitting in a hot trunk or frozen anywhere if you're doing in the winter. Okay? I keep it in the main cab of my car. When I travel, I put my suitcase in the main cab of my car. Because who knows how hot it's getting in there, 120 degrees or so. All right. And when I go through the demo, I'm going to tell you exactly how to dose it. We're going to talk about A1C next, and then we're really going to get down and dirty with the... Any questions so far then on the cardio check? Any information that...
As far as analyzing it, like you said, you just let it lay flat. You don't have to hold it or...
Nope.
Okay.
You want to lay it flat. So when you think about it, and I'm going to go through this in a demo, if I'm sitting down and I'm screening you, if I have my analyzer over here and you're my patient, that's not going to work, right? I'm not able to pick it up and bring it to your hand, so I'm going to make sure my analyzer's here. Okay?
Normally you can move it between clients.
Yeah, after the testing is complete.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So once you've done what, you don't want to move your analyzer?
Once I put my strips in,
Okay,
I'm having it sit on the table.
Perfect.
Okay?
And Emily, did you mention with the temperature issues, the indicators on the boxes?
Yes, on these there will be indicators. So, all right. On the lipid panel strips, there are no temperature indicators that say it went outside of its storage temperatures. But on the A1C and the cotinine, it does have the indicators. Okay. Or A1C, or I'm going to go over a little bit the testing ranges for the lipid panel and glucose, just the same way I was going over for the cotinine and the A1C. So the cholesterol, and this is going to be important because it makes multiple calculations with that lipid panel. So it's going to calculate your LDL, it's going to calculate your LDL-HDL ratio, it's going to calculate your non-HDL. There's 4 things that it does calculate. So it's going to be important to those measuring ranges so that if you do get something out of range and something doesn't calculate, you don't freak out. Okay? So the cholesterol range is going to be from 100 to 400 mg per deciliter. So anything less than 100, less than 100, anything greater than 400, greater than 400. HDL is 15 to 100. And then we have triglycerides at 50 to 500. And glucose of 40 to 600. So it encompasses most people. That's something you might see in really healthy people that have been fasting might have less than 50 trigs, and that's not necessarily, if it's within their medical history, that might be something that's normal for them. So anything out of range, cholesterol, HDL, triglycerides, calculated LDL will not calculate because we use the Friedwald equation in our analyzer to calculate that equation. So what LDL, it needs a cholesterol result, it needs HDL result, it needs a trig result. So if you get anything, the analyzer thinks it's not a real number and it's not going to calculate it. Okay? If a trig is greater than 400, it's also not going to calculate. So you could have a trig of 450. and everything else is in range, and it's still not going to calculate your LDL, and that's just because that equation, I mean, it stops being relevant at that point. It's going to basically give you a falsely low LDL because you have such an elevated trig, okay? It's just going to be important to know that if you don't get something calculated, okay?
So there's no error message, it's either greater or less than, which means that it's out of range, but it doesn't mean it's a bad test.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad test, especially if it's within their medical history, because lots of people, you know, like if it's a really healthy person, I know if I fast, I'm less than 50 on my triglycerides almost every time, okay? And that, but if, let's say, you get a greater than 400 and you flip over your test strip and you see all really light blue color, at that point, you think about the blue color. So if my cholesterol is greater than 400, it better be really dark blue. The intensity of the blue color is going to correspond to the concentration of the analyte. So if it's really light color, it's going to be light as this dental bib. Okay, it's just a reflectance value that it's taking. Okay, so the top circle is going to be cholesterol. The middle is HDL and the bottom is triglyceride. So if you're flipping it over and you get kind of a weird result, you're going to want to double check that less than or greater than result does match up with what you kind of see on the back of the test strip. And it does go in order on the screen. It says cholesterol, HDL, triglycerides. And so you can kind of just flip it over and do a quick check. Okay? If the strip is all the way out or out just a touch, like I was talking about earlier, a little quarter of an inch or even less than that, and it reads the back of the black test strip, you're probably going to see one of two things. Greater than 400 for your cholesterol, greater than 100 for your HDL, and greater than 500 for your triglycerides, which would be a huge red flag, right? At that point, especially if you looked at the back. If it starts testing before you apply a sample, that's going to be a red flag to you, as to you didn't have your strip pushed in all the way, okay? All right, and you might also see, let's say you caught it. Let's say it started testing and you pushed it all the way in. You're probably going to see a less than 100 cholesterol, a less than 15 HDL, and a less than 50 trig, only because it's going to read the white without anything on there, because you pushed it in at that point, and it's going to read the white instead of the black. Okay? All right. What I want to do, and I want to spend quite a bit of time, and I think everyone should at least try and practice, maybe even a couple times, that flow from one to the other, because we're running all three off of one finger stick. So I'm going to set something up. Can I have a volunteer? Yeah, but we actually are getting a lot of blood out of that finger. We're getting 2 40 microliter capillary tubes plus our A1C. Okay, so we do need a lot of blood sample, and there's a lot of stuff going on when you're doing it. So something that we practice, so when obviously I'm going to make sure that everything's set up. I'm not yet. Okay. And I'm just going over finger stick technique. So we usually choose the middle or the ring finger. Okay. That's going to be not as calloused as your pointer finger. And usually go off the non-dominant hand if you can. So that way you don't get into those calluses. So when you're looking at the finger, if you're looking at it like this, picture this as like a puppet. Okay. This would be like the smile. You want to stick it on the eyes somewhere. So you see 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. I know it sounds silly, but this is going to be the easiest spot. It's nice and meaty. It's not going to hurt them. You don't want to stick it on the tip. You don't want to stick it over here next to the nail. It's going to be much better for you to stick it a little bit left or right or center at those eyes. Okay? Another thing that we do, that we teach, and I don't have gloves on yet, but this is just for demonstration purposes, we do something called the thumbs up technique. So I'm putting my thumb up. This is going to be kind of my platform to hold this finger. His nail goes over kind of the second knuckle on my pointer finger. My thumb goes over his first knuckle, his first bend. What this does, see how red that gets? Nice blood flow. Okay? So I kind of pump him up a little bit. Look how red that is. Really nice. If you're milking the finger, if you're just going like this, the blood's escaping, going back into the hand. If you're cutting off that whole circulation, the only motion you need to make during a finger stick is let the blood flow back in, trap it, the blood's going to come out of the finger, you're going to be collecting it. When you run out of blood and the blood stops flowing, let go of it, let the blood flow back to the finger, trap it again. The blood's going to come out again. Usually, if I'm only collecting 140 microliter capillary tube, I have to do that twice. 2 squeezes. And then you're good to go, okay? So if you do have a problem with blood flow, have them straighten out their arm. If you're like this, obviously, it's working against gravity and you have a bend in your arms. The blood flow is not as well. Okay? If you're really having a hard time, you can move it below the table, okay, to collect. All right. So to kind of, any questions on at least the positioning of the patient or where you're going to be sticking? Okay. So like I said before, a little bit left or right of center. So you're going to stick the finger. The first thing you're going to do, we're going to go ahead and dose the cardio check, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do, I have my first drop of blood. I haven't wiped it off. So I'm really, just for demonstration, I won't stick you, okay?
Yeah.
First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to choose which finger I like. And I'm going to clean this finger. Really, really, only out, this is the alcohol pad. And you're scrubbing this finger. You are not just clean. That's not clean. Okay, so you're scrubbing it really hard, 5 to 10 seconds. So what this also does, other than clean off any dirt that could be on there, lotion, hand sanitizer, all that's going to be really important that you get off. Triglycerides on the lipid panel are very sensitive to any kind of glycerol related products. Okay, so.
Or the Krispy Kreme donut you had in the car.
Yes.
Ooh.
So if you, I know, you got to get that off there. And what this also does is it actually brings that blood to the surface. So when you're scrubbing for that 5 to 10 seconds, you're making it easy on yourself. You know, just say hi, introduce yourself. At that point, you're scrubbing the finger and you're getting it really nice and clean. At that point, you go ahead and dry the finger. You just want to make sure that that is really dry so when you stick them, it does not hurt. If it obviously has alcohol on the finger, you stick it. So let's just say I have him on my thumbs up platform. I take my lancet, I stick him at the eyes on the puppet. If I had my glucose strip in, I'm actually moving his finger to the glucose. The glucose automatically wicks in. At that point, I would wipe the residual blood and collect my first capillary tube. Okay? So that's going to be the only thing that I'm going to kind of go through without, I just wanted to make sure that you really got a good understanding. The very first drop goes to the glucose, wipe it, collect your first capillary tube for your lipid panel, okay? I'm going to go ahead and kind of set up how I would set up a station. I don't know how you would want to, but. All right. So my patient sits down, my memo chips in. When I turn on the analyzer, it's going to say run test. It's going to be on patient testing. At this point, you're ready to go. Okay?
Uh-oh. Have mouse will travel.
I'm going to make sure that my lot numbers match my memo chip. My lipid panel's here. My cotinines out. I'm going to run the cotinine second and my A1C third, okay? I'm going to take out all the things that I need for one finger stick so that way I'm not fumbling. So I need 2 capillary tubes, because I need one for my cotinine and one for my lipid panel. 1 alcohol, couple gauze. I'm going to go ahead and take out my cotinine. I'm going to open up my pouch 1. It did come through, Sally, just so you know. Okay. Alrighty. This is my cotinine. I'm going to go ahead and poke my hole and get this ready before I even stick them. Put it on a hard surface. My cotinine's here. I'm going to do the same thing with the A1C. Except I'm not going to puncture. Okay? Alright. Go ahead and put my strips in. If I hit the enter button, it's going to say Q602. Which I'm going to make sure that my lipid panel matches Q602 compared to my glucose, okay? When I put in both strips, if everyone kind of wants to look here, I'm going to pick this up for demonstration purposes. You see that it looks like it wants to be dosed on that right-hand side. It's basically going to remind you that it wants to dose the glucose first. It wants to know what you want to do over here. After we dose this glucose, the blood drop is going to move to the left-hand side, and then that's when you know it's ready for the lipid panel, okay?
So it's 1 drop for both of those tests.
It's a drop here. It automatically wicks in. It's a little bit less than 5 microliters.
Got it.
You wipe it, collect the capillary tube for the lipid panel, okay? I'll go really slow. Hopefully he doesn't clap by the time. I can talk a lot. I can talk a lot, I know that. Alrighty. Clean them off really good, 5 to 10 seconds. Are you nervous? Okay. Also want to make sure I got my hands. This twist off like 3 times and then pull, okay? Pump him up a little bit. Another thing to think about, when I stick his finger, which side of his hand do I want to stick it on? Do I want to stick it on this one? Is it easier for me to move the drop of blood here or here? And it's going to just depend on you. I would rather go here, but some people would rather go on that side, okay? So I'm just saying, little stick. First drop of blood, going to go to the glucose. Wicks it automatically. It starts testing. There's the beating heart. Okay, I'm going to drop that or wipe the residual blood. I'm going to get a nice big drop. Okay, I'm holding my capillary tube parallel to the floor so I don't get any air bubbles. I'm not covering up the 40 microliter line. Okay, all the way up, no air bubbles. Okay, at that point, just let them know that I'm going to come back for this. I'm hovering over the test strip, putting my fingers over the bulb, dispensing the entire sample in the middle of the test strip. At that point, my lipid panel is ready to go. Okay, it's going to start testing. Yep, the blood's going to travel through the strip and it's going to start.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to wipe that blood. I want a fresh sample every time I'm collecting for a different test. I'm going to go ahead and collect my cotinine. I'm going to get another big drop of blood. There we go. We're all the okay, it's going to start testing. Yep, the blood's going to travel through the strip and it's going to start.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to wipe that blood. I want a fresh sample every time I'm collecting for a different test. I'm going to go ahead and collect my cotinine. I'm going to get another big drop of blood. There we go, we're all the way up. Okay, at that point I'm sticking the capillary tube down into my hole in the foil. Okay, past the foil, covering up the holes, dispensing the entire sample. I still have the bulb pressed and I pull it out. Okay, this is my piercing cap. I go ahead and shake it.
Yep, shaking down the thermometer.
Shake it, yep, and go ahead. Wipe it. We just need that little 5 microliters. That's why we do this last, in case we've got a lot going on, right? Okay, you can go ahead. See how there's just a little bit on there? And I didn't take any blood out. It's all the way up to that window. Ooh. Go ahead and push and twist. And then this one's the shake it like a martini, kind of 6 to 8 times, okay?
Now, you can get more blood in the capillary tube. It's not a big deal, right?
It will stop automatically
It does.
at 40.
Okay.
Yep. So at that point, my blood samples are both ready. I can open up my cartridges. Okay? Go ahead and open up my cotinine. Check my lot numbers, R8 to R8. It's going to say wait. Go ahead and open up my A1C. 2H to 2H. It's going to say wait. This was my cotinine. Always keep it on which side you're on, okay? Don't just throw it anywhere. It's going to say sample, remove the base, press it down until it says run, pull up. You see how nice and red that sample is, okay? And then I moved something, didn't I? I moved something. Well, anyways, we'll keep going on through here. And then you're going to do the A1C. And it's going to say run. I moved something on here. Sorry, guys, that's not a good... It moved something on the QC.
QC 34.
Oh, because I was holding it too long when I was talking. So hold it only till it says run and then move it. I was sitting it on there for a long time talking. So, are you still bleeding? You want to try and?
So when you punched it down, you held it too long?
I held it too long when I.
Oh, so
There you go.
Yeah.
You need to punch it quickly and just take it out.
Yeah. It punch it till it says run and then. I was talking. That's one thing about talking and doing at the same time. You are a good bleeder, though, so thank you for not clotting.
Yeah, you even put pressure on that and it still bleeds.
Yep. Hold that. If you don't get an insufficient sample or it's not being, if you're not shaking it hard enough, you will get a QC 50. That's the. Wait, sample. Run. So it is a quick, it's 1 second.
Oh, and there goes the clock.
Yep, and there goes the clock. So at this point, your lipid panel is already done, almost before you even get these sampled, okay? I would probably bandage
Die
your...
next week.
Huh?
He's gonna die next week.
Let me bandage you up.
You got a nice fatty sub.
There you go. At least you didn't go to McDonald's. Put the Crisco right in your artery.
Okay, so at that point, I can get rid of the glucose strip. I'm looking at the back of this test strip. You see how it turned all shades of blue? They were white. Okay, it's going to correspond to what it says on the screen. So, do you mind?
No, okay.
You're getting videotaped anyway. So his cholesterol is 183. So that's somewhere in the middle. It's not a really deep blue color like this. So that makes sense. Okay, nice HDL 71. Everything looks really good. It automatically transferred to the computer right now. Sally's back there. Did it go?
It's up.
It's up.
It's up on the screen.
Okay, look, see? It automatically,
There's your report.
yep, there's your report. But if you did want to see it
In all
on
the
the
pretty
screen.
colors and everything.
Now do you print it out and hand it to the person?
Unless you have computer glitch,
Uh-oh.
which we did.
Or you have
I hate when that happens.
a glitch at the computer.
Do you